Hi, Councillor Alexander and Summers. We just want to test that you can actually hear us online.
I can hear you.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. On speak. Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock, so we'll start. Welcome to the second meeting of our Scrutiny Panel 1, which is Housing and Environment. We have some officers and councillors, panel members joining us online. As you know, this is being live streamed on YouTube. And I just remind members and officers, if you would like to contribute, just use the raise hand button icon and keep your mic on mute. That'd be great. Thank you. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Tighe and our COP team member Ben Tomi, who sent their apologies for not attending tonight's meeting. Urgent matters to discuss. I've not been notified of any. Declaration of interest.
Chair, just like to mention that I do own a property business within the boroughs. We'll be talking about tenancy agreements at a later part.
Thank you. Noted. Matters. Yes.
Maybe I should just declare the same interest I declared at last meeting.
Would you like to say again?
Yeah, because I happen to work for another local authority housing department.
Thank you. Noted. Matters to be considered in private. I've not been notified of any. And we move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 16th of July. Is that agreed? Just so you know, officers did respond to our recommendations in the report, which I believe you've all seen. We move on to our agenda for tonight. So just bear with me. Agenda item 6 that we'll be discussing tonight is housing services repairs update. We have Joanna Hills, who is the Assistant Director for Housing Asset Management, and Councillor Louise Brett, who's joined us. She is the portfolio holder for Safe and Genuinely Affordable Homes. Nikki Fiedler is online. She is the Strategic Director of Housing and Environment. I believe, Joe, you are presenting the report to us, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I've got a few brief slides just to summarise what's in the report. I assume you've read it, but just to draw out the key headlines. So what I'm going to talk about is the mobilisation of Axis, the repairs improvement programme, including resident involvement, voids and capital programmes, customer satisfaction, and then we have with us tonight a couple of people from our main contractor, Waits, who are interested to hear from yourselves as well. So mobilisation of Axis. So you may recall we, after the failure of the prior contractor, we brought Waits on in quite a rush, and they were very helpful in supporting us through a transition period. We've since mobilised Axis as well to work alongside them to give ourselves more flexibility, more capacity in the system, and so on. And Axis have been live since April 2024. They focused on repairs and largely building safety works, which is fire safety and electrical. Performance has been good to date, very little escalations, no formal complaints. I would note that the appendix data was the whole service, it wasn't specific just to Axis. The key challenges we've had with the mobilisation have been around, well, and improvements that we've done. We've had improvements around how we've allocated works. So I think at first, you know, it's very difficult at first to work out how, particularly with two contractors now operating, how we decided what goes to whom. And so working out the processes and procedures around that took a little bit of time, a little bit of working with the teams to try to work out, you know, where was the operational need most, what skills suited which contractor, where was the best resourcing. And we've now got procedures in place, and that's now working quite smoothly. Both contractors actually sit with us in the office, so that there's really good team working. So those procedures, we identify which are larger works, which need to then go off and to be treated as a separate project. And we've also got patch management, and I think this is really important for the customers. So you've got surveyors and operatives who really know their patch, who get to know the customers in the area. And I think that's probably something that Waits can talk about in more detail about how that works operationally on the ground. We've got a thing called jeopardy management, which is the jeopardy obviously is that a repairs job goes overdue, and that's what we don't want. And so we've now got a method whereby we can see from the data when jobs are at risk of going overdue, and actively drill down and actively manage them before that happens. And we're also able to do variations from site, so the operatives can raise jobs, call in, and schedule things while they're with the customer. And again, that's like, it's really the customer journey is really the most important thing in the repairs process in terms of not just managing down any complaints, but genuinely making sure that customers are happy and all of the benefits that go with that: reduction of failure demand, increased efficiency, and happier customers. So contract management, which is obviously really critical to making sure that we get the value out of the contract. So we've implemented new procedures and meetings at the operational level and at the management level, and those are taking place really regularly, particularly during this early period while we're trying to settle in. But we're doing the same with weights as well, actually, and again, they'll talk about that in a minute. But it really enables much closer working. We have had a lot of challenges, particularly around the data, which is something I'll come back to in a minute, for both contractors. So that close working has been really important. So the data challenges. We've got a system called Illuminate, which is actually really brilliant. It's got a huge amount of capability and it is going to be fantastic. It takes a little bit of time to get all your data onto a system like this. And one of the things that you will note, because I dare say when you looked at the appendix that we put to that report, you probably would have thought that the data looked very poor. Part of that is being remedied by data cleansing. And we are reassured, although not so reassured that I brought you the new data yet, we are reassured that the data will look much better next time we see it, because it's not, that performance data is not necessarily all about poor performance. A lot of it is around poor data, which is being improved as time goes on. We're managing to upload some of the back data, which is giving us much better view. And we've also agreed, in the last 2 days actually, we've agreed a new methodology for how we, for what data is included, what data is excluded, which makes it really nice and clear. So there were things like we had data in there that was being logged as a job being completed when the person in the office hit the button to say it was completed, rather than when the operative actually completed it on site. And of course, it's when it's on site that's important. So some of that data, ironically, was actually looking worse from the way that the contractor was managing it, and will look better, I think, in the future. So just moving on to the improvement programme. So obviously that data work is part of that, but that doesn't help the customer on the ground. So what we're really interested in is the customer on the ground. So we've been involving customers in consultation. We've been having a series of customer empowerment meetings. One was in August, which you'll have seen in the report, and we've got one coming up on the 9th of October where we're meeting to talk about the whole service as well. The long-term aim is for proper co-design of services. I wouldn't really say we're there quite yet, but we genuinely are aspiring to working more closely with customers and fully understanding what actually would help them best, what we can deliver it and how we can deliver it. And we're looking for resident champions. So if you have any constituents who are very interested, we would always be really grateful to have them put our way so that we can involve them and learn from their understanding. The contact centre, I think contact centre is very important in the delivery of services for repairs, not just because it can be a source of frustration or joy if a customer can or can't get through easily to a call centre, but also because that is where the diagnosis happens. There are quite a lot of calls chasing, and really what we'd like in the long term is to be able to have IT systems that will allow a customer portal where residents can actually see what's happening to their job, so they don't have to ring up and say, I think someone's coming, when are they coming? But they can actually just go and look for themselves. That's a long-term aspiration. As I say, we're even just sorting out the data at the moment, so we'll aim for that in the longer term, but that would be great. And we've got all sorts of other contact centre improvements that we can do around the diagnostics, the training, the scripting, and so on, which I've been talking to them about. Finance and value for money is obviously super important. So we did a market comparison while we were doing the procurement. Both contractors are from an approved framework, and we've employed a quantity surveyor to ensure that all the invoicing is done correctly. That person is checking everything that comes through, and we're going to be consolidating that role into our new structure going forward as well, because it has visibly driven the contract value from what we can see. Other operational aspects are we are focusing on recruiting and resourcing, and again I would expect Wait to probably have something to say about that as well, because that's a really key part to making sure that we've got the trades on the ground, and referral processes being improved. Voids is really important. We've got issues around the data there as well, but we are going to be managing that through our systems, and other improvements have been around forward planning, customer satisfaction and close collaborative working and training. Capital Works programme has been delivering not as fast as we hoped, and the reason for that is because we're still working on the building safety data behind that. We're analysing what's needed on our high-rise blocks, and we'll be rolling out those programmes. But some of those investigations have proved to be quite technical and detailed, and we've got to get them right. So those will be coming forward shortly. The customer satisfaction data, it's improving, I think is the most important thing to say. There's lots of green arrows, particularly year to year. It's improving, which is pleasing to see. That was in the report, so I won't dwell on that. I'd just like to introduce Waits at this point. So with us today, we've got, or actually I should probably, let's just sit them down. I should probably give you a moment to ask any questions, I expect, and then we can give them a moment to go through their things as well.
I think if we get Gary, or I've written it, Jed, if you want to briefly just tell us what you guys do and in terms of the contract that you have with the council, so what it covers, and then we go to questions, because it's, you know, rather than us giving you all the questions, I want to hear about what you guys do and how you deal with the contracts.
Yeah.
Our chair, ladies, gentlemen, councillors, good first bit of technology. That was a good test for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come in. I'm Gary Wilson. I'm the Regional Managing Director for Waits Property Services. So we're one of the biggest repairs and maintenance providers within London. Just to give you a little bit of history about our relationship, us and obviously Ealing Council. We were asked to support last summer because your previous contract and your previous repairs and maintenance service, as Joe said, was kind of collapsing a little bit. So we stepped in at quite short notice. Probably one of the fastest mobilisations that we've done in the history of Waits in terms of stepping in and shoring up the service. If I'm honest, we did pick up quite a poor service. There was loads of legacy, outstanding repairs, quite a lot of disgruntled clients and residents living in your property. But we stepped in. We're co-located in the offices with your officer staff, delivering your repairs, maintenance, voids, and we also cover your FRA works as well. We've got a mixed model, so we've got directly employed operatives and a operational delivery team doing all the back office stuff, but we also use our supply chain as well in terms of supporting on the delivery. Repair volumes when we first stepped in were really high, but that's a natural thing that we see working with clients anyway when a new contract comes in, but they've started to drop off and stabilise. And Joe mentioned about the KPIs. You notice it was a really bumpy start back end of last year, but you can see from, or you will see from the new KPI data, when it comes out progressively, it's been getting better and better month on month. Key for us is the customer satisfaction, but also delivering the service so that we deliver the repairs, get the repairs done correctly right first time, which I think we're well on our way to delivering that journey. With me, I've got Jed Livermore. Jed Livermore is my divisional manager. He's the responsible leader within my business for the contract and service delivery here, and Jed's visible actually in the council offices 2 to 3 days per week. happy to take questions, Chair, ladies, gentlemen, if that would help.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. And thanks, Joe, for the information. I do feel that, you know, maybe the report does feel that it wasn't prepared because, you know, you said that the data is old data. And we'll see a difference, you know, with the new updated KPI, there will be a difference. But, you know, based on the data that we have in the report pack, you know, year 1, year 2 is just what reassurance is there that year 3 is not going to be? And I know you mentioned that it's because some of the reports that was being closed, it wasn't the right one, and it just needs tidying up. But it does leave me with, like, what reassurance is there? Like, how do we, you know, it's just a word of mouth that, oh, you know, it will be done. And I've you know, in the report, it did say that the monthly operational reviews with access, you know, it was being mentioned that the system needs to be updated. You need to do it. And 8 months on, they're still doing it manually. This shouldn't have taken this long. For a contractor, they should have done it quickly. And when you take on a contract, like, you know, from a local authority, you expect better, I guess. But what reassurance is there that they are actually, the system's going to be updated? It's not going to be manual, that every time a report is done, they do the work, they close it. What reassurance is there? If you want to take that, and then I'll go to panel for questions.
Yeah, thank you. So that data issue applies to both contractors, and it's really, I think in the past, I think data has always been managed in quite a manual way, and I think with our past contractor, it was pretty much manual all the way. We're implementing this new system so we can have better visibility, and next time we come, we will bring. We'll actually be able to show you how we can drill down and use it. It's one of the good things about it is it gives you a high-level dashboard as a manager in the office, but then you can drill right down to job level and actually see which jobs in which patch are the ones that are failing, as well as those ones that are in jeopardy. And I think that is beginning to help with the improvements on the ground. The other thing is about resourcing, and we really have struggled with not having enough staff, frankly, on our side as well. And we have got a huge recruitment program about to start, which is starting, I believe, today with the heads of service advert going out today. And we'll be following on in the next couple of weeks with a whole string of surveyors and admin people and project managers as well, which will give us a lot more of a robust contract management presence in the office, and that ability to go out and drive performance further. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, Chair, just to add that to that, because we've been in it here for over a year, just to give our committee members a little bit of reassurance. As you'd expect, we manage data behind the scenes internally. The really good thing about the Ealing officers is they identified quite a lot of the KPI management was manual, and rightly so. They've appointed an independent Luminate software company or consultancy to support them. So between us, Luminate, and the client, we're working very closely together. So we have had a series of workshops. We've gone through all the KPI data, the measures, the metrics, and we're 100% on the right journey, which I know it doesn't look too good in your report, but working with quite a few other clients across London is really reassuring that the officers are taking that direction in terms of getting an independent person to look at the KPI data. And there is a track that the performance of the service is getting better month on month as well.
I'm sure we look forward to seeing that and seeing the difference.
I just want to say thank you for coming down today. We do really appreciate it. It's great to be able to speak to some of our contractors that work in the housing repairs. Apologies, I've got quite a few questions, so be prepared. I'll probably break them down into chunks to give myself a breather and give you guys a bit of a breather too. So in terms of the paper currently, it shows that we're underperforming against our KPIs, and as you stated, it's because there's a backlog. But does it also account for when repairs are closed and issues haven't been fully resolved? So if parts have been ordered, has it then taken into consideration actually the repair is still ongoing? It's just maybe a new ticket's been raised or a new job's been raised and the previous one's been closed based on the works and the activities taking place. So I'll let you answer that one first before I bombard you with the rest.
Jed, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, so in regards to the orders, so apologies, hi all. So in regards to the orders, no orders are as of January this year, when we changed a few processes, no orders are now closed until they're fully completed, apart from emergency orders where we get 4 hours to attend and 24 hours to rectify and make safe. But no orders moving forward are closed until the repair is completely complete. Obviously, we just figured about the resident's journey.
Sorry, I've got a list if you guys don't mind. The next one was, is it possible we could have a breakdown of the satisfaction results in August and have it broken down by ward or by actual area? Because it'd be great to see where we're lacking satisfaction in certain areas. So for example, in our last scrutiny panel meeting, we noticed Southall had the lowest satisfaction rates, and it'd be great to see whether that's changed or not. If it's still quite low, why is it quite low? Is it because repairs aren't being prioritised? It'd be interesting to see if we could have that data, because I think that is crucial, because I know you've provided the overall. It'd just be nice to see it broken down into the local towns and the wards section broken down as well.
I just want to. Is it working? I don't see the light. Anyway, with that one, I think rather than them answering now, we could put that, see if it's possible for officers to work on that and come back to us. If you've got a few more questions, just give a few at a time. So.
Sorry, what's the next one? Sorry, so I know we said there was a comparison tenant perception data from us and neighbouring boroughs and the registered provider of social housing. Do we know when this is going to be provided? Because I know you said you were allocating a lead officer as part of the recommendations, and that was the comment made. Do we have a rough timeline as to when we're going to get that, so there is a comparison so we can see the visual data and go where we are slowly maybe falling behind in comparison to other boroughs? The next one was in terms of the delay for the KPI data. It's quite concerning considering we've had waits on for so long that we haven't had a system in place to track performance. And now you're telling me that it's going to take until December, which is quite disappointing. I think specifically for this council, it's key to understand where we're falling short, and the only way we figure out where we're falling short is looking at KPIs. I know at work I'm very much a pusher for KPI with my subcontractors, so I want to make sure that this is something that gets pushed. I know you've put December in, but if that's best case scenario December, could we have a date for a worst case scenario when this will get done if there's technological issues further down the way? And could we have a breakdown per contractor as well? So you've explained that both Waits carry out certain parts of the works, Access carries out certain part of the works. Could we see how they're veering up to what work specifically they're carrying out? So we could see the KPI breakdown for both of them as well. And then I think this one's more aimed towards you, Joanna, in terms of just one quantity surveyor to be looking at the current contractors. I'm a quantity surveyor, and I can assure you that it's not an easy job being one quantity surveyor looking at invoices, applications for payment for very large contracting companies. So I do think there should have been a commercial team in place, especially project managers, senior members of staff, in order in terms of the commercial team. This should have been started a lot earlier on when we had brought Waits on, making sure that we had that system and that foundation in place prior to bringing on maybe a secondary contractor in April.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for those. Some of them, unfortunately, I will have to go away and come back to you on. So breakdown by ward and the tenant satisfaction measures by against other boroughs and so on. If that's okay, I'll come back to you on that. In terms of the KPI data, I should just reassure you that it's not that we haven't been tracking it. It's just that we haven't had the full sort of background data caught up. So although it's looking poor, in effect, because we thought it was poor, we've been actually giving them quite a hard kicking. And it's only recently that we've come to realise that there was a bit of a data issue. So in actual fact, yeah, we don't worry that we haven't been pushing hard. We genuinely have, and yeah, it's actually we were quite relieved to find that it seems as if it will get better. But I should emphasise, I'm not saying at all that it will necessarily look as if we're doing wonderfully when we get that data through. It's just not quite as bad as it looks. So I think we're right to be maintaining that pressure, and I'm sure that Waits will agree to that. And finally, before I hand over to them, on the commercial team, you're absolutely right, and that's why we're setting it up. I totally hear what you're saying, and it's a shame we didn't get a chance to speak to you before, I guess. But thank you for that.
I can't get this technology working. Just to reinforce what Joe said, you as a client have been really robust over the last three to 4 months, in particular with us, which has triggered the right conversations in terms of accelerating getting the KPI data, because we thrive off data and KPI data as well, because it helps inform the officers in terms of improvements to service. And Joe has definitely been giving us a run for money. Now there are QS, there is QS support internally, so just hopefully to give you a little bit of reassurance, applications for payments, there is the right scrutiny taking place internally before payment of any fees that are due to us.
Thank you. Councillor Summers, you're online and you have your hand up. I'm not too sure if your question has been asked by Councillor Sidhi or not, but you're up next.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I was trying to work out my cameras and stuff. Yeah, it was a question. I think the proof of that is often in the pudding rather than you know, the data. The actual when it comes to councillors, that is casework. You know, when we see the casework dropping off and people getting less angry, that is when we'll see we've turned the corner. But I'm obviously not going to name a name, but for example, I had a woman emailed me in July saying that she'd been waiting a year and a half for her roof to get repaired. So that was obviously the original contractors and Waits, you know, both at fault. And then when I did raise it, I was then, you know, told by an officer I'd get a reply by 30th of July. The whole of July went by, the whole of August, and it wasn't until early September that I had to escalate it. So it's partly the contractors, but I mean, it may be the answer you just explained, that, you know, very short of staff. But it seems like, you know, we have got a lot of very unhappy residents who are not getting a very good service still. And you know, when we try to represent them as councillors, we're often not getting much of a response either. So I don't know if you can come back to that on the reasons for that.
Yeah, I've been reading some of these cases as well, and yeah, there's nothing to say except that it's not the service that we want to be providing, not at all acceptable, and not the standard that we're intending for the future. It has come about for a combination of different causes. With our complaints, we do analyse all the different reasons behind them. So obviously we've got data from the complaints, we've got disrepairs data as well, and we've got ombudsman feedback as well now. So all of those three sources are obviously golden, but there's a long way to go on the improvement programme. I think one of the biggest causes of failure is that issue that was behind the earlier question, I expect, about are jobs just closed down and then forgotten about? And I think that did used to happen in the past. I think before people kind of realised that that's how the systems were operating. And in the past, I don't think people did. I think that the operatives on site quite often hit close. I finished my work on site and it used to just go back into a system as done. And that has definitely been corrected, as Jed was saying. I don't know if you want to pick up anything else about how it will work.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile I mentioned it as well. When we went live on this contract, there wasn't a full IT integration between us and Ealing, obviously because of the fast pace and the position you was in. So the processes between client and contractor weren't 100% correct. Councillor Summers, just to come back to you. I have a regional customer service manager, a lady called Charmaine Tullock, that's parachuted in to deal with particular cases like that. So if councillors do have members of your communities that do have particular issues, get them either into officers or get them into us, and then we will review them, because we do weekly reviews of complaints, ombudsman, disrepair cases internally as well, and we will pick this stuff up. Unfortunately, there are not quite a few. There are legacy jobs from your previous contractor that are still getting picked up, but it just needs to be highlighted to us, and we jump on it and rectify them.
In terms of, thank you for that. In terms of legacy jobs, what are the numbers we're looking at? Like, how many is outstanding?
So when we originally took the contract back on in end of June last year, we had approximately 1,300 legacy orders. And obviously out of those, I believe there was over 1,000 that was roofing, hence the reason why we're still picking up these roofing orders. But out of the 1,300, there was all the complex cases. There was all easy. It was the nightmare jobs that the previous contractor didn't want or couldn't handle. So it has taken a long time to get on top of the roof, and we're still not where we want to be. But the numbers have come down and reduced. But like Gary said, any queries or things like that, please come to myself, please come to Charmaine, and we'll make sure that they get picked up and dealt with. So
do we have an actual number?
On the legacy, there were the 1,300 legacy orders.
As in, how many is outstanding right now from the legacies?
I couldn't give you an actual number. I don't believe there's many, because like I say, we've seen a massive reduction in our WIP over the last sort of 5-6 months. But I believe these cases are previously reported to the previous contractor. When the systems weren't integrated, when they come to us, they could have got lost. However, like I said, I don't believe there should be too many of them. But okay, so if we look on the screen, we've done a quick, what we like to believe is a really good news, positive story. We know we had a massive legacy WIP that come to us in sort of June, July last year. We know that the demand was very high. We know that the mobilisation and resourcing was quite difficult, and like I said, it was a 6-week turnaround time. But you can see in January of this year, we had an overall WIP of around 3,600, 3,700, and our age WIP was just over 2,600. It was a massive WIP for us, and it was certainly not where we wanted to be. But if you just look at the trajectory going down over the upcoming months to where we are as of this month, please bear in mind that this does include disrepair works, FRA works. It's all clubbed together as one part of our WIP. So as of the end of August, our WIP is currently at 1,240, and our age was currently at 618. And we have got a target to reach by the end of October, which we've agreed in our strategic workshops where we want to be. But we've reduced the WIP and our age WIP massively over the past sort of 8 months, and we still got work to do. We know we've got further work to do, but with what we've got and how we've dealt with that, I believe it is a positive, good news story.
And it might, for councillors, it might be worthwhile just mentioning WIP is okay as long as WIP is still within the time scale that we're tasked to go out and do the job. So if it's a 28-day job, as long as it's still within that 28 days, that's okay, because there'll be an appointment in with the resident. It's the aged WIP which causes problems, because that's outside of whatever the time scale is, and that's what generally generates a complaint or an inbound call to officers or to the contact centre following up on work. So that's what Jed and the operational team are tasked with doing, targeting that aged WIP, because at the end of that aged WIP, unfortunately, is potentially a disgruntled resident.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, you had a question?
Yeah, I do actually. So thanks, Chair. I think I'm just looking at the last graph. I was going to ask that question, but I'll ask it now. I think in terms of the percentage of stock, that sounds quite a lot of aged jobs, and I don't know, you won't have the figures here now, but how that compares to other boroughs, because it does, you know, we've got about 18,000 tenanted homes, I think, roughly. So it's a lot of outstanding jobs. So I don't know where that has been over the years. What I was going to say on a general point, perhaps picking up your point, Chair, at the beginning, and it's good to see that actually the cabinet member here as well, because I know Louise is taking this seriously. I've raised obviously Labour group issues as well. So, and it's issues. Councillor Summers is sort of alluded to it. We've had concerns of councillors going back some time, and I don't think it's just this last year, and I've been raising it. It's almost like it's been a head in the sand approach. And the concerns that perhaps all members have is, okay, we're going to hear nice things will happen, but obviously the proof is going to be in the pudding. In 6 months' time, if we're still in the same place, we're the ones out there on the doorstep, you know, and it has been frustrating for customers as well. They come to us because they don't hear back and we don't hear back. We heard this at the last meeting as well, the lack of communication generally, that, you know, it's been difficult. I know I've had, I mean, Nikki's on the line where literally I've had to refer to Nikki at times. I've heard nothing from the officers and come back, you know, on issues, and that's not really how the process should work. You know, I should have to bombard the cabinet member each time and there's a complaint. There should be a system that's in place going. But look, I think the staffing thing, hopefully that will improve things. In that, by the way, I don't work in repairs, so it's not my bag. Okay, let me hasten to add. I think I know we have the estate inspection process back in place. I don't know if you guys are part of the ongoing estate inspection programs. Do you pick up jobs as part of that? This is a request actually for information on fire safety issues and what it might be on particular estates where we are with fire doors and things. It'd be quite useful for councillors. You won't have information now where we are on particular estates. You know, how much have we reached in terms of roof repairs, fire doors, things, and that'd be useful for us to know. But the other thing was just lack of complaints, and I don't know the answer to this, but you said complaints have gone down. Is it because people have given up as well? You know, because people don't trust the process. Like, what's the point? Because we don't want to be somewhere we were when we took the Alma in when we first came in 2010, which is people's perception of housing service. That's just dealing. We want it to be a good. I know, Councillor, but you want it to be a good service. You know, and obviously with the trajectory to try and improve things, that's where we want to be. So, sorry, some of it's comments, but some of it's questions.
Councillor Martin.
I'd like to say thank you. I sort of feel a little bit assured, having listened to all three of you over there, that we seem to have come into the 21st century with our repairs issue. However, I think I have to concur with all my fellow colleagues around the table. The proof will be in the pudding. Joe, I think there are lots of residents champions out there who would be more than happy to come forward. Certainly ones that I've met in our ward. I'm really pleased to hear that no job will be completed or will be shut down until it has been completed, because that is quite clearly been a huge problem from housing matters that I've certainly seen from previous. And finally, slightly more negative, the private sector doesn't get away with this, so certainly the public sector shouldn't. And quite frankly, I know I certainly wouldn't get away with it in my business, just leaving jobs as they are. So the proof's in the pudding, but well done on getting it at least to this point. And I just feel that the modern technology for us will certainly be a bonus. And I look forward to possibly seeing you on some of the estate inspections. It's always nice to get you out of the building and actually down and getting dirty, which is what we end up doing most of the time. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I've got one final question, actually, which colleagues haven't asked. In terms of quality control, repairs are done. What checks are there that the standard of the work that has been carried out is good enough for our residents? Because it's all well and good to hear from contractors, oh yes, we finished the job. But in what standard was that job completed? So do we have any checks in place for that? Thank you.
I'm at a slight drawback here because I only just started just over 4 weeks ago, so I don't know the exact post-inspection regime. What I do know is that there is a post-inspection regime because we've been talking about that in the office, and so normally in a service it would be everything post-inspected over a certain value and everything by contractor. And so I dare say Waits can follow up. And also, would you like to talk about your customer satisfaction tests?
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of internal process for officers, I'm not sure how that works, but certainly within Waits, we post-inspect at least 15% of all repairs we do through our supervisors. So our supervisors tend to manage a 1-to-8 operative ratio, and they will post-inspect 15% of that. Councillor over here, who is a QS, will know as well, in order for us to get paid, we need to provide photographic evidence that the job is complete. Doesn't necessarily mean that the photographic evidence proves the job's to the right quality, but it does give the internal officers some reassurance that we have attended site and we have completed that repair as well. But we also do customer satisfaction tests as well. So we will send text messages out to try and get some instant feedback that then feeds into us in terms of a hot alert. So if a resident isn't happy, what the team should be doing operationally is picking it up pretty quick and then trying to rectify it. But there is a internal waste process in terms of what we do. And that's the first time we've worked with you as a borough, but we trade on reputation weights, and it's really important for us to get things right. Granted, we do get things wrong sometimes, but it's how we respond to getting those things wrong.
Thank you for that. I feel like based on the casework that we get, and I respect what you're saying, I understand where you're coming from as a contractor, but from a local authority's point of view, and I know that you said you don't have this information, if we don't have some sort of quality control in place, then that is something that we need to have, because you can't tell the quality of a repairs work that's been carried out based on pictures. We do need to have these surveys done, surveyors to go and check the quality of the work. So that is something that we need to definitely have in place. And I know you've said that, resources are tight and we're getting more people in, but that should be something that we need to do. Councillor Brett, would you like to come in?
Yeah, so obviously you've been listening to the questions, and I suppose in particular, Councillor Taylor, your kind of comments in terms of not getting the accurate response that you should be getting as councillors, and also residents. At the end of the day, they shouldn't have to come through us in order to be able to get the repairs done or get housing officers to respond to them. I think we can acknowledge that that process isn't right at the moment, and for all of the kind of issues that have been outlined in terms of that historically, this is going back quite a long time, that some of our data systems haven't been kind of managed properly. We do have as stated several times, we do have some staffing and resource issues, which are being addressed. And so I just wanted to kind of reassure in terms of some of the things that have come out today, is that there are plans in place and there are projects that are being worked on behind the scenes that we can't kind of necessarily talk about tonight in detail, that is addressing some of these concerns. And I share those concerns, and so does Nikki, and so does the senior management team that she has put in place in order to help kind of alleviate some of these issues. So I just wanted to kind of give that reassurance that it is being looked at, and we are kind of working really, really closely on these issues in terms of our response rate to our residents, and also response rate in terms of repairs. And we've been working, I know that the officers have been working really, really closely with Waits in order, and our other contractor, in order to kind of make these improvements and make sure that there's a level of accountability as well, so that our residents are, at the end of the day, there first, and that's where they should be, and we should be giving them a good service, and it's not quite up to par. It's not where it should be, as Joanna has acknowledged, but we want it to be a better service, and we will be working on that. So I just wanted to reassure members. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We've done with the questions because we've asked. Is it a comment or a question?
It's a question.
Okay, we do one quick fire round, and then we will.
Switched on. In view of the staffing changes, I know we report cases, and I don't want to copy Louise and Nikki into stuff. It's just, is there? I'm trying to think of a better way to do it. So if someone comes to me, I can, what the email address is. If I don't get a response, who can I go to? I think it would be helpful for us as members to say, actually, who can I take it to each time, rather than copy the cabinet member in or Nikki each time. I think obviously you've got new people coming in, but it'd be helpful for us to at least have an idea.
Can we get a reply to that offline? Because obviously this is being live streamed, and if it's going to be a specific email address that you need to share. So let's do that offline. We can share that information later on. Councillor Zizamos, you had a question as well.
I'm curious to know how how you've got the old work, the legacy work, and then the new work, how you balance it so the new work doesn't become aged work, legacy work. So do you have different teams? How do you do it?
So yes, the way we currently work it is we've got 15 operatives currently in the diary now that deal with all the new work that come in on a daily basis. So they're visible to your call centre, so they could book them or allocate them works. And then we've got a dedicated sort of hit team that just solely blocks out the diary that we just use to continuously work on the backlog of legacy works, along with some subcontractors, because a lot of them are the old school complex case work. So the majority of them are subcontracted.
And it might be worthwhile noting as well. I've got in my part of the business, I've got 800 staff, of which about 350 of them are operatives working within the M25. So what we do is we often float spare capacity over to Ealing to help with surges, because through the cycle of the year you will have surge repairs come in particular October. We know more repairs come in because people fire up the central heating. So we do draw on a wider resource pool within London.
Thank you. Councillor Stu?
Sorry, I promise this will be my last question. In terms of your works that Waits carry out, what is your exact scope of work? So does that include like guttering that hasn't been like poorly maintained, or it's redone by any chance?
Yeah, so so it's a full scope of repairs and maintenance to a property, internal, external repairs and maintenance. So we would cover anything. The only thing that's excluded at the moment is planned works. So planned works as in kitchen replacements, roof fall replacements, and what is everything that's gas servicing. That you have another provider doing that. But basically anything to do with repairs and maintenance, internal, external to a property, we cover.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Martin, final question. And we move on.
Final, yeah. It's really just around the voids. I'm looking here, end of August. We've got general needs stuff 230. I mean, how many voids do we have currently, and when are they likely to come into action, given that our list is just getting longer and longer?
Yeah, thanks for that. I don't have the full figures on the tip of my tongue. Nikki actually might, but yeah, hand up. I guess what I would say is that our team obviously handles the construction side, and we are aware that we're not as quick as we would like to be, and there's definite improvement there, which is those measures that I mentioned before. But I'll hand over to Nikki because she might actually have the actual figures, I think.
I suppose I haven't got the actual numbers, but we can share them afterwards. I thought they were in the report when I agreed it. But what I would say about the voids is, yes, we did have a legacy issue, and some of that is still remaining. But I believe that we've put around half of them back into use already. We had hoped to have got them all back into use and up to the standard void turnaround time by the end of September. But we are having, again, staffing challenges in terms of getting the sign-ups done and through. The issue initially was we didn't have enough capacity from the contractors, so we were just with one contractor at the time, and we obviously didn't have access with us. We brought on some other contractors to turn the properties around. We are now in a better place with that. It's just getting through the allocations and the sign-ups of those, and we are focused on that on a daily basis. We have a daily stand-up, and we are, holding a really tight ring on it, because we know that every property that's empty is really important, that we make sure we get that back into use, because we're in a housing crisis. So it's improving, not as quickly as we'd hoped. And we are keeping a really close focus on it.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for presenting and answering our questions. In terms of our recommendations and comments, you've heard panel members, our residents, they deserve better. And I do welcome that the housing team, they have acknowledged that, and you are taking the right steps to address the issues. One thing that we all agree, I guess, is that for panel to see the new updated KPI report, because we need to see that we are improving. That's important. And Councillor Sidhu, what you asked, the ward-based satisfaction results, I don't know if that's something that we can get or not, but if you could, Joe, look into that and then just let us know. Percentage of age jobs that's pending, actual number, not just an imaginary, or we think this is an estimate, or we think this is how many we have legacy pending and whatnot. We want to know the actual number of what work is actually outstanding from all jobs, and quality control of the works that are being carried out. Is that agreed? Thank you. You're free to go now so that we can move on to the next item. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you. It wasn't that bad. We move on to the next agenda item, which is item 7, and we will be looking at challenges to temporary accommodation supply within the borough. We have Stephen Tate joining us. He is the Assistant Director for Housing Demand, and I am so sorry if I mispronounce your name, Leary Edowa, Head of Allocations and Accommodation Team. and I'm not too sure who will be presenting, but floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us. My name is Larry Dawu, and I'll be talking you through the challenges we are facing with TA supply. So we'll start with how we got here. I think it's safe to say that the private rented sector in Ealing has reduced and is increasing unaffordable to households who are homeless due to inflation and the cost of living crisis. This means that there's not enough properties to rent, and those that are available are unaffordable to most residents. These factors are all increasing the demand for housing in the borough, as well as reducing the supply as more landlords exit the sector. As a result, there is now a housing crisis, with an increasing number of households approaching the council for housing, limited supply for them to move into, resulting into them remaining in temporary accommodation for years, and an increasing number of households placed into bed and breakfast accommodation, and more recently into commercial hotels because of lack of supply, which is, we agree, it's unsustainable and inappropriate housing solutions for those households. So what are we doing about it? We've created a new capital program envelope called the Accommodation Acquisition Phase 3 at a value of 150 million. This envelope, when drawn down, will be funded from both prudential borrowing as well as any available flexible support grants from other capital funding that may become available in the future from the government or the GLA. Any associated revenue costs are to be covered with the existing temporary accommodation and housing benefits subsidy shortfall revenue budgets. TA survey is currently being conducted with households in TA to understand and get a better understanding of their needs so that we're able to explore a more permanent housing solutions for them. We have in place a move-on team ahead of TA reduction manager dedicated to finding permanent housing for those we can resettle. The short-term solution, we have acquired what we're calling step-down B&B, and we've got 120 is what's in the report I sent, but we've since acquired 12. So we've got 132 B&B step-down properties. These will have cooking facilities and laundry facilities, which the commercial hotels don't have. The intention is to move households into the commercial, into the B&B, to allow for a better move-on plan. So we have moved 171 households out of the commercial today. We've got 69 households remaining in commercial, and I know that over the weekend we'll have another 10 to 15 households moved out, and hopefully the commitment is to have every household out of commercial by the end of September. This will mean that families will no longer be moved every 2 weeks, which is what's currently happening. This is currently putting a pressure on the service in terms of resources and financial loss. This also moves us away from the commercial hotel use, which is currently general practice in most councils. What's the long-term solution? Early intervention, joined up work with the court desk, defend a lot more Section 21s, increase offer of private rented. As we know, social housing can't solve this issue. So working with private landlords to agree an incentive package. So working on financial package, as well as support for the landlord that gives them a quick access back to the service so that we can pick up any issues with their tenant as early as possible, should keep the landlord happy and prevent repeat homelessness. Explore outreach activities, being visible in the community, taking the services to hubs where we can pick up issues with disrepair, overcrowding, harassment, a lot more, be more visible in the community to help drive up prevention and keep people in their homes. Because if we're saying there is no home, then the other option is try and keep them where they are. So reduce the use of LIAs. These are licensed independent annex. They're nightly lets and are more expensive TA with less security in terms of notices to leave. So we've got a number of those in our portfolio, just thinking about how we reduce the use of that. And also talking to providers of our PSL and LIA to see whether we can flip some of the properties, talk about what that would take, because what that then does for the household is give them a more permanent home. Obviously, it's got to be up to standard before we can sort of flip that. Exploring tenancy ready training. We know that social housing can't resolve this issue. And so some people will have to be offered PRS, is how we get them ready for that. And obviously, affordability is an issue as well. We've acquired a bespoke financial calculator, which really takes the applicant through their income and expenditure, so they understand as well what they can and can't afford. So the last slide is talking about Locata, and I think there were some questions around that. So Ealing Council's allocation policy underwent significant changes effective from the 4th of September 2023. One of the most notable changes was the elimination of Band D, which led to the automatic removal of all cases in this category. At the time of the change, around 5,250 cases were registered in Band D, out of the total of just over 12,000 cases on our housing register. Following the change, approximately 7,419 cases remained in Band A and C. Previously, the Band D applicants, except those aged 60 and over, who could bid for sheltered housing, were on the register. They had no hope. So we just had those people in Band D that were under 60 on the register without any hope or being eligible for bidding, creating unrealistic expectations for them. Applicants were also advised to reapply. So if their situation or circumstances had changed, and whether they could be awarded Band A to C. So it wasn't the people who were told to come off the register couldn't go back on it. You just need to reapply, and then we can then reassess you and see where you are. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. We go to questions. I'll start with my question and then we go around. So in terms of, you've mentioned about the long-term plan and the explore of outreach activities in the communities. And you briefly touched upon what that looks like, but in terms of us as councillors, what can we do to help in that process? And my second question is that the step-down B&B hotels that we have, cost per family, what are the numbers to commercial hotels that we have some families in? And so I just want to know the difference of how much it costs per family, I guess.
So with the commercial, it's seasonal. So we could have people being booked in at £77 a night, come summer, 139 a night. What we've been able to do is fix this, the B&B step down from anything between 70 to 77. And the savings from that step down with the numbers that I've given you, we're sort of estimating, and we can come back with an actual just under 2 million, basically the difference between the cost of the travel lodge and those cheaper rooms that we procured.
Thank you. Councillor Sidhu?
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your presentation. I just wanted to ask, so from your locator, this was based at the time of the change. What are the current number of cases that we have within bands A to C? And could we see the individual breakdown from A, B, and C to see how many cases are live at the moment?
Can I jot that question down? I haven't got the data.
No, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor. Sorry,
Okay, this one's going to be slightly tempered because I was working with Stephen Tate about 4 days ago. So I suppose just thinking about numbers, because what the report hasn't got is numbers at the moment, how many households there currently are in temporary accommodation, really. I think just to have that background would have been quite useful, and perhaps where they're located, because I know there's a pressure in temporary accommodation, right? That's London-wide, particularly. We've got highest number of households ever in temporary accommodation, so I'm sort of aware of it in terms of that. Perhaps more specific, in terms of step-down B&Bs, I was just wondering how long we anticipate people being there in terms of preparation further, perhaps move on. And I don't know where we are, because it's this thing where the Home Office would compete for accommodation as well, where we've been affected by some of that in terms of because they've won it for asylum seekers as well. And perhaps more specific on the private landlord issue, I know a lot of people who apply as homeless because it might be domestic abuse issues, challenges where landlords, not retaliatory evictions, but they might think, well, I don't want to deal with that domestic abuse situation. I've dealt with having consultations previously where people actually say, well, landlord might deal with my problems, and I end up being evicted as a consequence, rather than the landlord not themselves dealing on the criminal side of it, but actually what steps they can do to improve the safety of a victim there.
Sorry, thank you. So with the step down, as I said, we've got a move on team or a settlement team that we didn't have, and they are dedicated to looking at moving on applicants. We've got people in temporary accommodation as well, so we need to balance that out, move people out of temporary accommodation. Then as we move people out of temporary accommodation, we then move the households in the step down into those PSL.
Could I pick up a little bit further in terms of that? So clearly we don't want to have many people sitting in B&B. It's not the best accommodation in the world. We've got a plan that we need to work through with MHCLG in terms of how we start working people through and out of that. 6 weeks is the limit that we're trying to work to. You're always going to have some sort of B&B in your portfolio because it's the way you manage it. So if people come in terms of the emergencies, you might place them into B&B to begin with. You then would be working with them to think about how you start to move them on. They might move to other forms of temporary accommodation. The bottom line is the best place for anyone to be is not in temporary accommodation at all. We need to do, and that's part of the work that we have to have up front to try and make sure we prevent them coming in the first place, and then the work we've got to do with them all the way through that journey to encourage them to move on. So how we will support them to discharge duty into some more secure accommodation, whether that is through the diminishing supply that we've got in terms of our social lets, or whether that's into PSL within the borough or out of borough, is a matter that we work through with each individual resident.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, do you have a question?
I suppose this is pretty obvious coming from me. Working with the private landlord, you've mentioned here an incentive package. Is that something you can explain or elaborate on tonight, or is that something we need to take offline? And how realistic, Stephen, is that 6 weeks?
The incentive, can we take that offline?
I think we all understand that temporary accommodation, homelessness, temporary accommodation is incredibly challenging across London. And it's not a situation that's unique to Ealing. It's something that every London borough is looking at. You've got that continual presentation coming through the door, coming in that we need to work through, and that real need to make sure we've got our prevention pathways working effectively so we can try and work with people up front. We've got a diminishing supply in terms of the temporary accommodation we've got. So the big challenge in the private rented sector is the way that landlords are exiting at the moment in time. And as they exit, it means it's a smaller pool. That smaller pool has increased demand in terms of cost, in terms of people in the market, but also has the same sort of effect for us in the background. I think the most important thing is the more that we are at the behest, to a certain extent, of the private sector, the harder it becomes for us. So the more we have control over that, over our temporary accommodation, the better it is, the better we control the quality, the better we can control cost. And so that comes back to that property pipeline, the 150 million pound proposal in the cabinet paper that went in February, that sets out a mixed economy approach in terms of smaller purchases, in terms of block bookings, in terms of working with private developers, in terms of looking at leased properties. Getting that sort of approach online means you can start managing some of the challenges you've got in terms of bed and breakfast. We're always going to be in that situation where we need to think about cost and the best outcome for our households. And so you're always going to have that step down approach. So you're always going to be placing someone in one particular type of temporary accommodation and then working about how you can move them down into something that's a little bit better. And also it stacks up in terms of us, in terms of finances.
That's fine.
Sure.
When did we last carry out a review on that step down? So we've got sort of people living in sort of 3 bedrooms that possibly could be now living in 2s. When did we last carry out a review?
There was a... Sorry, I think I'm loud enough. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just online.
Oh dear. So in terms of the survey, we had a company go in this year and conduct a survey. But I think just to point out the step down that we're talking about, we've acquired that in the last 6 to 8 weeks because of the numbers that were growing in commercial. And I think, you know, the intention there is, because we've got people in temporary accommodation, and you rightly said, you know, maybe they've outgrown under-occupying. There is a piece of work that's going on with that. And as we free up people who have been in temporary accommodation for years, then we move the people in step down into that. And I think that's what Stephen was saying, that you might sort of come in the step down, but we'll sort of try and move you into more suitable. And I think we were asked about the numbers in TA. I think it's just over 3,000.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Summers, you're online and you have a question.
Yeah, sorry, a very simple question, and one I think I've asked at a scrutiny panel before, but I never really understood the answer, or never got an answer. It's on the question of the officer said that there are a lot of private landlords leaving the market. But I don't quite understand that, how the properties that they're selling, who now owns them? Surely they sell them to other private landlords, or do they just become vacant, or is there, you know, a mass of repossessed properties, or are people buying them as their home, you know, homes, and then therefore not renting them out? Can you explain a bit, very briefly?
I don't think I've got an answer to that. I know, you know, people are a bit spooked about the renters reform bill that's coming out. So maybe that's something we need to look into. But I think Councillor Martin,
Chris, I probably could answer this one for you. To be quite honest, a lot of them are getting out of the market. They're selling them to not investors. There are first-time buyers out there who are looking at sort of favourable deals, who are in a position to be able to buy them, and you've got families who are now buying them jointly. So it's, if I said to you, I don't mind saying this publicly, 25% of my business has just disappeared from the private rental sector, because people are just absolutely fed up to the back teeth. There's more and more legislation coming in, but some of it is right, let's be fair, but that's who it's going to. They are first-time buyers or families buying together. Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's not in, you know, 100% bleak picture. I mean, if they're people, you know, they're residents who are living them, they're not
you know, they're not just being bought for investments and being empty. They are, you know, our local residents who are getting their first homes. It's not 100% bad news.
Nikki, you've got your hand up. Do you want to go?
Thank you. Yeah, I think the bit that I just wanted to point out here is that only 2% of rents in Ealing are affordable. And the problem that we've got with the housing crisis is people's ability to afford homes. So there will be some families in Ealing that can afford to buy those properties, but the types of families that are coming to us don't have that level of income and can't. And therefore the available market that they would have been getting private rented accommodation from is contracting considerably. The stock we've got from the private rented sector is contracting as we're having to hand it back, and I signed off countless properties to be returned today. So I'm seeing that on a daily basis in quite considerable numbers, and at the same time that market's contracting with people coming to us needing accommodation. So we're kind of getting hit at both ends with it, which is why, you know, when Stephen talked about us increasing our own directly controlled supply, it's about how do we intervene into the market to try and become, you know, a more affordable landlord. But we can't do that for everyone, which is why we need to start having conversations about, you know, how people can best meet their needs and where they might be able to do that.
Thank you for that. Perfect. My question where I asked about the long-term solution and what we can do as councillors to help with that, I don't think that was answered.
So I can't give you a direct answer on that, but in other boroughs I've worked in, so this is my fourth day here at Ealing. So in other boroughs, we've worked in developing frequently asked questions for councillors, which helps them in terms of understanding some of the issues that are faced. I think there's a lot of awareness that we need to try and raise with some of the households who are going through any sort of situation like this. Part of that is around the waiting times in some of our council waiting lists, and that if you're waiting for the 3-bed home, you could be waiting for an incredibly long period of time. So whilst that is an option, it's not the one that we really need to be looking at. It's about raising the awareness of other community sector organisations and other small providers that can help out. So we're working with providers such as Relocate, for example, to help look for properties in alternative places. It's about raising awareness around some of that financial piece, so understanding affordability within that, and an organisation can help that. All of that comes together really into, at the end of the day, the best solution for a household is about working together with the council and working with themselves to try and find the solution. And if you do that, the product, what you're going to get at the end of the day is going to be better, probably than just sitting back and waiting for something to come through from the council, because the council will find something, but it might not be the thing that the household really wants at the end of the day, but it will be enough for us to discharge the duty.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the information that you shared with us. It is very helpful for us to understand better in terms of, you know, we are in a housing crisis, we understand that, and temporary accommodation, there's a lot of families in there, and we get casework, we know exactly what is happening. So I think with this item, it's more additional information that we need. So if that can, you know, the number of applicants in each Locata band, stuff like that. So that would be helpful for us to know. And is that okay with panel members for us to carry it? Councillor Taylor, you look a bit concerned.
I'm not concerned, no. It's just perhaps the numbers. I know you've mentioned a figure for numbers in TO. That would be helpful. You know, we see a trend line there. So I mean, it's obviously going up. Hopefully, it will come down at some point. It's difficult, but that kind of thing, really. And perhaps some timelines on some of the solutions.
Did you get that down? In terms of timeline? Okay. So, yeah, if we could get those additional information, that would be great. And thank you very much for your time tonight. It was very helpful for us to understand better what you guys do. Thank you. Okay, so the next item that we have is the panel work program. You've seen it, before. So have you, are there any reviews or responses and recommendations on the program that we have, or are you happy with that? Just to mention, actually, Councillor Sidhu did request if we could do a possible panel visit to Southall Street Homeless organisation. So I've spoken to Anna Marie and emailed, so we will see if that is something that we can possibly arrange for our next meeting in November. Are there any comments that you would like to add?
Just one, perhaps it's one for the portfolio, because I know around the time of that next meeting, usually the rough sleep account takes place, and I know the borough I'm working with allows some members to join that count. So whether that's possible, it'll be midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning.
Anna Marie says she will look into that and see if that can be arranged. So I don't think it would be Louise that has to organise that. It will be this side that will, we'll do that. Okay, that's been noted. Our next, the date of our next meeting is the 21st of November. And what's that? Your birthday? Oh. So we will see you